The baby's scream broke the silence first. Then came the crash. The expensive vase hit the floor with a loud, deafening sound. Amara Washington's world shatters with it. The other cleaners scatter like roaches when the lights flip on, but she can't move, can't breathe, because those footsteps echoing down the hallway belong to him. The man whose floor no one disturbs, the man whose name is whispered like a curse, and he's coming. Hey lovelies, welcome to the channel. Please like and subscribe. Amara's hands won't stop shaking as she stares at the wreckage scattered across the 42nd floor hallway. 18 months in Seoul. 18 months of keeping her head down, of being invisible. And now this. The decorative vase, some priceless ceramic thing that probably cost more than she'd make in 5 years, lies in pieces at her feet. And her daughter Zuri is still wailing against her back, little body writhing in the carrier. "You stupid girl." Mrs. Kim's voice cuts through the chaos, sharp and panicked. The supervisor's face has gone the color of old paper, her eyes wide with something that looks like genuine terror. "Do you know whose floor this is?" The words come out in broken English, each syllable dripping with disbelief. "Do you know who lives here?" Amara knows. Everyone knows. The 42nd floor of Seoul's most exclusive building belongs to Kang Min-jun, and that's all anyone will say about him. The security guards won't meet your eyes if you mention his name. The other cleaners cross themselves when they walk past his door. Even Mrs. Kim, who yells at everyone about everything, goes quiet when discussing the cleaning schedule for this floor. And Amara just destroyed something that belonged to him. The elevator dings, and Mrs. Kim's face drains of what little color remained. She backs away from Amara like she's contagious, like whatever's about to happen might spread. "If he comes out," her voice drops to a terrified whisper, "you're finished. We all are." But it's too late for warnings. The elevator doors slide open with a soft hydraulic hiss, and Amara hears them. Heavy footsteps, measured, unhurried. The kind of walk that belongs to someone who has never had to rush because the world waits for them. Each footfall against the marble sounds like a countdown, and Amara clutches Zuri tighter, her heart slamming against her ribs so hard she thinks it might crack them. This is it. She's going to lose everything. Her job, her visa, her life in Seoul. They'll deport her back to Atlanta with nothing. And her mother will give her that look. The one that says, "I told you so," without saying a word. The one that says, "You can't make it on your own. You never could." The footsteps are getting closer, and Amara can't even make herself look up because if she sees him, if she meets his eyes, it becomes real. The footsteps stop. The silence that follows is somehow worse than the crash, worse than Zuri's crying. Worse than anything Amara has ever experienced. It's the kind of silence that presses against your eardrums, that makes you aware of your own breathing, your own heartbeat, your own existence in a way that feels like a mistake. She forces herself to look up, and there he is. Kang Min-jun stands 6 feet away, close enough that she can see the individual threads in his black shirt. Far enough that she'd never make it to the elevator if she ran. He's younger than the whispers suggested, maybe early 30s, with features so sharp they could cut glass. Everything about him is black. Black slacks that probably cost more than her monthly rent, black shirt with the sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms covered in intricate tattoos that writhe like living things in the hallway light. But it's his eyes that freeze her in place. Dark, bottomless, the kind of eyes that have seen things that would break normal people. He doesn't yell, doesn't curse, doesn't even look particularly angry. He simply studies the shattered vase with the detached interest of someone examining a mildly curious insect, head tilted slightly to one side. Then his gaze lifts to Amara, and the weight of it nearly drives her to her knees. It's not hatred in those eyes. It's something colder, more clinical, like he's calculating exactly how much trouble she's worth. "Who are you?" His English is perfect, almost accentless, which somehow makes everything worse. His voice is quiet, controlled. The kind of quiet that comes before violence, the kind that makes you wish he would just scream instead. Mrs. Kim practically throws herself at the floor, bowing so deeply her forehead nearly touches the marble. "Sir, please, she is new. She doesn't understand the rules. She doesn't know. I asked her." He doesn't raise his voice, doesn't even look at Mrs. Kim. He doesn't need to. The supervisor's mouth snaps shut immediately, and she stays bent at that painful angle, trembling. Amara's mouth has gone completely dry, tongue sticking to the roof of her mouth like sandpaper. I'm Amara, the cleaner, sir." The word tastes wrong, feels wrong. She's never called anyone sir in her life, pride being one of the few things her mother actually gave her. But terror has a funny way of erasing pride, of reducing you to something small and desperate. "How much is the vase worth to you, Amara?" He tilts his head slightly, and Amara realizes with creeping horror that this is a test. There's no right answer. Every word she says from this moment forward is another step toward whatever edge he's leading her to. I don't. She can't finish the sentence. Can't make her brain form coherent thoughts when those eyes are fixed on her like she's a problem to be solved. "Can you afford it?" The answer lodges in her throat like broken glass. "No, sir." Her voice cracks on the words, and she hates herself for it. Hates how small she sounds, how defeated. "Then why bring a child here?" His eyes move to Zuri, who has gone eerily quiet against Amara's back, little body tense like even an 18-month-old baby can sense predators. The question isn't asked with curiosity. It's asked with the cold logic of someone who sees the world in calculations and consequences. Amara opens her mouth to explain about the broken child care, about having no choice, about how she's trying so hard to make this work, but the words won't come. Because what's the point? He doesn't care about her circumstances. Men like him never do. Before she can force out an answer, before she can beg for her job or promise to pay for the vase somehow, Zuri makes a sound. Not a cry, a coo. A happy, delighted sound that babies make when they see something that brings them joy. Amara feels her daughter shift in the carrier, feels those tiny arms reaching out, and then the world tilts sideways because Zuri is reaching toward him, toward Kang Min-jun, toward the most dangerous man in the building. "Da-da," Zuri squeals, her face breaking into that bright, gummy smile that usually melts Amara's heart. "Daddy!" Time stops. Actually stops. Amara can hear her own heartbeat in her ears, can feel the blood draining from her face, can sense Mrs. Kim's sharp intake of breath somewhere behind her. The other cleaners, scattered down the hallway like frightened birds, have frozen into living statues. Nobody moves, nobody breathes. "No, no, baby, no." Amara reaches back frantically, trying to keep Zuri from reaching toward him, words tumbling out in a panic-stricken flood. "I'm so sorry, sir." She's just a baby. She doesn't know what she's saying. "I'm so sorry, please, Her fingers fumble with the carrier straps, shaking so badly she can barely work the clips. She manages to unhook it and pull Zuri into her arms, holding her daughter against her chest like a shield, stumbling backward until her shoulders hit the wall. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." She calls everyone that. She doesn't understand. She doesn't. Please don't. But Zuri starts crying immediately. Not the angry cry, or the hungry cry, or even the tired cry. The heartbroken cry, the one that tears Amara's soul in half every time she hears it. Fat tears roll down her daughter's brown cheeks, and her little arms stay outstretched toward Kang Min-jun, fingers grasping at air. "Da-da, Daddy!" she wails, struggling against Amara's grip with surprising strength. Little body twisting and writhing. Amara is shaking so hard she can barely hold on. "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, sir, please." She's stuttering, stammering, her words breaking apart like the vase on the floor. "I didn't mean." She doesn't understand. "I'll go, I'll leave, right and now. I'm—" "Daddy!" Zuri screams, the sound echoing off the marble walls, off the high ceilings, bouncing back at them from every direction until it feels like the whole building is full of her daughter's cries. And then Amara sees it happen. Something shifts in Kang Min-jun's face. It's fast, so fast she almost misses it. But it's there. Not anger, not disgust, something else entirely. Something raw and unguarded and almost human flashes across his features for just a second before his mask slams back into place. His jaw tightens. His eyes go distant. And then his hand moves before Amara can process what's happening. "Give her to me." The words are quiet, too quiet, like he's barely holding something back. Amara's brain short-circuits. What? The child. His eyes haven't left Zuri's face. "Give her to me." It's not a request. It's not even a command. It's a statement of fact, like he's informing her of something that's already happened, already been decided by forces beyond her control. Every cell in Amara's body screams at her to run. Maternal instinct floods her system with enough adrenaline to lift a car, to fight off a bear, to do whatever it takes to protect her baby. But there's nowhere to run. The elevator is behind him. The emergency stairs are too far. And Zuri is still crying, still reaching, and the way he's looking at her daughter, the way his eyes have softened just slightly at the corners, the way his shoulders have dropped half an inch. With trembling hands that don't feel like they belong to her anymore, Amara extends Zuri toward him. It's the hardest thing she's ever done. Every instinct she has is screaming in protest, and she's already mentally calculating how fast she can grab Zuri back if this goes wrong. If he hurts her. If... The moment Kang Min-jun's hands close around Zuri's small body, the crying stops. Just stops. Like someone flipped a switch. Zuri curls into his chest like she's been doing it her whole life, like those arms were made to hold her. Her tiny fist clutches his black shirt, wrinkling the expensive fabric, and she makes a contented sound that Amara has only heard during afternoon naps. That soft little sigh that means everything is right in her small world. The hallway is silent except for Zuri's soft breathing and the distant hum of the building's ventilation system. Mrs. Kim is still frozen in her bow. The other cleaners haven't moved. Nobody dares. Kang Min-jun stands there, this man who, according to whispers, has killed people with his bare hands, holding an 18-month-old baby with a gentleness that seems impossible. His large hands support her easily, one under her bottom, one on her back, like he's done this before, like he knows exactly how to hold a child this age. His eyes are fixed on Zuri's face with an intensity that makes Amara's chest physically ache, like something inside her is being squeezed by an invisible fist. He doesn't explain, doesn't speak, doesn't acknowledge anyone else in the hallway. He just stands there, and Amara watches something in him that was locked tight crack open just enough to bleed. His thumb moves almost unconsciously, stroking Zuri's back in small circles. His breathing has changed, deeper, slower, like he's trying to memorize this moment. And his eyes, those cold, bottomless eyes that made Amara want to disappear, have gone soft in a way that transforms his entire face. Zuri yawns, tiny mouth opening wide, and snuggles deeper into his chest. Her eyelids are already drooping, dark lashes fluttering against her cheeks. She's falling asleep. On him, on Kang Min-jun, the man whose name people won't say above a whisper. "Sir," Amara's voice comes out barely above a whisper. She doesn't know what she's asking for. Her daughter back, an explanation, permission to leave, permission to stay. But he doesn't respond, doesn't even look at her. His entire world has narrowed to the baby sleeping against his chest, and Amara realizes with creeping certainty that whatever just happened, whatever door just opened, she's not getting her daughter back anytime soon. The question that should terrify her, why is he doing this, is slowly being replaced by another, more unsettling question. Why does he look like he's holding something he lost? Her mind starts forming questions she doesn't want to ask. Why does her daughter, her mixed-race, chubby-cheeked, always happy daughter, look at this dangerous man and see her father? The elevator dings again, making everyone jump. Heavy footsteps emerge, more than one person this time. Amara catches a glimpse of men in dark suits, earpieces, the kind of security that doesn't work for buildings. And her blood goes cold all over again because this is getting worse. This is escalating into something she can't control. But Kang Min-jun raises one hand, just slightly, barely a movement, and the security team freezes at the elevator. They don't speak, don't approach. They just stand there, waiting, and Amara realizes that his power isn't just about violence or money. It's about absolute authority, the kind that doesn't need to be voiced. He finally speaks, and his voice is different now. Still quiet, but missing that cold edge. Something in his expression shifts again, softens further, and Amara feels like she's watching something private. Something she has no right to witness. How old? 18 months? He nods slowly, like this information matters, like he's filing it away somewhere important. His thumb continues its circuit on Zuri's back, and Amara notices that his hand is shaking. Just slightly. So slightly that if she weren't watching with the intensity of a mother whose child is in potential danger, she might have missed it. "Sir, Mrs. Kim tries again, her voice cracking with stress. "I can take the child. I can—" "No." The word is soft but absolute. Final. Discussion over. Mrs. Kim's mouth snaps shut again, and she looks at Amara with something that might be pity or might be terror or might be both. The message in her eyes is clear. You're on your own. Amara swallows hard. "Sir, I have to finish my shift, and Zuri needs her afternoon bottle soon, and You're done for today." He finally looks at her, and his eyes are different now. Still intense, still powerful, but missing that predatory calculation. "Come with me." The words aren't a request, they're a command. And Kang Min-jun is already walking toward his penthouse door with Zuri still curled against his chest, like she belongs there. Amara's heart stops. "Sir!" She stumbles after him, panic flooding her system so fast she can barely breathe. "Please, I just need my daughter. Mrs. Kim." He doesn't look back, doesn't slow down, just keeps walking with that measured stride that makes clear He's never had to ask for anything twice in his life. Leave, all of you. The cleaning staff vanishes like smoke. 1 second they're there. Mrs. Kim with her terrified eyes. The other cleaners pressed against the walls like they're trying to disappear into the marble. And the next second the hallway is empty except for Amara and the man walking away with her baby. Amara has no choice but to follow him into the penthouse, her legs moving on autopilot while her brain screams at her to run. The door closes behind her with a soft, final click that sounds like a coffin lid slamming shut, and she's trapped. Trapped in the home of the most dangerous man in Seoul. And he has her daughter, and she doesn't know what he wants, but she knows it can't be good because men like him don't do things without reason. Inside, the space is exactly what she expected. All cold minimalism, black leather furniture that looks like it's never been sat on. Floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking Seoul's glittering skyline like the city is just another thing he owns. What she didn't expect was how empty it feels. Not empty like vacant, but empty like abandoned. Like a mausoleum. Like a place where something died and nobody bothered to bury the body. Kong Min-jun walks to the massive windows, still holding Zuri, who has started playing with his collar, tiny fingers tugging at the expensive fabric. The afternoon sun cuts across his face, highlighting the sharp angles of his jaw, the shadows under his eyes that suggested he doesn't sleep much. Sit. He gestures to the sofa without looking at her. Amara perches on the edge, spine rigid, legs tensed, ready to run even though there's nowhere to run to. Sir, please, I don't understand what's happening. Where is the father? He cuts her off, his eyes still fixed on Zuri's face like he's memorizing every detail. The question catches her off guard. Her jaw tightens. Not in the picture, never was. She doesn't elaborate. Doesn't mention the college boyfriend who disappeared the moment she told him about the pregnancy. Doesn't mention the shame in her mother's voice when Amara said she was keeping the baby. Doesn't mention any of it because this man doesn't deserve her life story. He nods slowly, like this confirms something he already suspected. Why are you in Seoul? I needed work, fresh start. My Korean isn't great, so cleaning was... She trails off, realizing how pathetic it sounds. Why is she explaining her life to him? Why is she answering these questions like he has a right to ask them? You have a visa? His tone shifts slightly, still quiet. But now there's an edge of something that might be concern, or might be calculation. Yes, working visa, everything's legal, I swear. The words tumble out in a rush, because the last thing she needs is immigration problems on top of everything else. How much do they pay you? He finally turns to look at her, Zuri dozing against his shoulder now, and the weight of his gaze makes Amara want to sink into the expensive leather and disappear. What? How much do they pay you to clean this building? He repeats the question like it's the simplest thing in the world, like he's asking about the weather instead of dissecting her entire financial situation. Amara tells him the amount, her voice barely above a whisper. His expression doesn't change. But something cold and furious flashes in his eyes, there and gone so fast she almost misses it. That's below minimum wage. It's not a question. It's a statement of fact, and the quiet rage underneath it makes Amara's skin prickle with something that isn't quite fear. I know, but I need... Where do you live? He cuts her off again, and Amara is starting to understand that this is how he operates. Quick, efficient, extracting information like he's conducting an interrogation. Goshiwan, near Gangnam Station. She doesn't mention that it's barely bigger than a closet, that she and Zuri share a single mat on the floor, that the walls are so thin she can hear her neighbors breathing at night. She doesn't mention that she cries sometimes when Zuri is asleep, wondering what the hell she's doing, how she ended up here, whether she made a mistake coming to Seoul at all. He's quiet for a long moment watching Zuri sleep, his thumb moving in small circles on her back in a gesture so unconsciously tender it makes Amara's chest ache. When he speaks again, his voice is softer than she's heard it, softer than she thought possible from a man whose reputation is built on violence. What's her name? Zuri. It means beautiful in Swahili. The words come out gentler than she intended, because talking about her daughter always makes her soft, always reminds her why she keeps going even when everything feels impossible. Zuri. He repeats it, testing the syllables and something in the way he says it, with careful pronunciation, with respect, with something that almost sounds like reverence. Makes Amara's eyes burn with unexpected tears. She blinks them back hard, refusing to cry in front of this man, refusing to show weakness. He looks at Amara then, really looks at her for the first time since she walked into his apartment, and his eyes aren't empty anymore. They're full of something complicated and painful, something that looks like grief wrapped around a core of determination. And then he asks a question that changes everything. Do you believe in fate, Amara? The question hangs in the air between them like a test, like a bridge that will either hold or collapse under the weight of whatever comes next. Amara doesn't know how to answer, because she stopped believing in fate the moment she realized she was pregnant and alone, the moment she understood that the universe doesn't care about fairness or justice or happy endings. But before she can answer, he continues, and his next words reshape her entire world. I need someone I can trust in my home. Kang Min-jun says it like he's discussing the weather, like he's not offering to completely transform her life. Amara blinks, her brain struggling to process. What? A housekeeper, live-in, private quarters, separate from the main floor, full benefits, salary, triple what you're making now. He lists the terms with clinical precision, but his eyes never leave her face, watching for her reaction, calculating her response before she even gives it. I don't understand. Why would you? Her mind is racing, trying to find the trap, trying to understand what he really wants because men like him don't do favors, don't offer help without expecting something in return. You need work. I need someone who isn't connected to my organization. Someone who has something to lose. His eyes move to Zuri, and the meaning in that look is clear as glass. Someone with a reason to be trustworthy. This is because she called you daddy, right? Amara starts, but he cuts her off with a sharp shake of his head. This is because you're clearly overqualified to be scrubbing floors for criminals who underpay you. His voice hardens, taking on an edge that reminds her exactly who she's talking to. The building management is connected to a rival group. You didn't know that, did you? Amara's blood runs cold. No. The word comes out strangled because she didn't know, had no idea she was caught in the middle of something dangerous, that she was working for people who might use her as leverage or worse. You would have been used eventually. Leverage, message delivery, or worse. He adjusts his hold on Zuri, who stirs but doesn't wake, and the protective way he shifts her higher against his shoulder makes something in Amara's chest twist painfully. This is a better option. You don't even know me. It's a weak protest, and they both know it, but Amara says it anyway because she needs to understand, needs to make sense of why this is happening. I know enough. You're alone in a foreign country, raising a child, doing whatever it takes to survive. You're not stupid. You learned enough Korean to get by. You're desperate, but not reckless, or you wouldn't have lasted this long. He pauses, and when he speaks again, his voice drops to something almost gentle. And your daughter trusts me. That last part lands like a stone in her chest, heavy and undeniable. Because Zuri does trust him. Trusted him immediately and completely in a way that should be impossible. And Amara has learned over 18 months of motherhood to trust her daughter's instincts. I can't just move into a Mafia boss's apartment. The words sound ridiculous, even as she says them, like dialogue from a bad movie. But it's the truth, and she needs to say it out loud. You can't afford not to. He says it simply, stating a fact, not being cruel, but not softening the reality either. Unless you have other prospects I'm unaware of. Amara looks at Zuri, sleeping peacefully against this dangerous man's shoulder, and feels the weight of every impossible choice she's made since the moment she saw those 2 pink lines on the pregnancy test 3 years ago. Every decision that led her here, to this moment, to this apartment, to this man who is offering her a lifeline but might also be offering her a noose. What would I have to do? Her voice is steadier than she feels, but she needs to know, needs to understand exactly what she's agreeing to before she makes a decision that will change everything. Clean, cook occasionally, maintain privacy about what you see and hear. Don't ask questions about my business. He moves toward her, and she forces herself not to flinch, forces herself to hold her ground, even though every instinct is screaming at her to run. In return, your own apartment within this penthouse, full kitchen access, childcare stipend, health care, salary deposited weekly, no deportation threats, no sleeping in rooms the size of coffins. He extends Zuri toward her, and Amara takes her daughter back, feeling the familiar weight settle against her chest, feeling Zuri's heartbeat against her own. Her baby is warm and soft and safe, and that's all that matters. That's all that's ever mattered. You have until tomorrow morning to decide, Kang Min-jun says, already moving toward the door to show her out, the conversation clearly over in his mind. Mrs. Kim will have my contact information. And if I say no, Amara needs to know, needs to understand if she's really being given a choice or if this is just an illusion of choice. Then you leave, and we never speak again. The vase is forgotten. He opens the door, and the hallway beyond looks impossibly bright after the dim elegance of his apartment. But we both know you won't say no, Amara. You can't afford to. He's right. God help her, he's right, and they both know it. She can't afford to say no. Can't afford to walk away from triple the salary, from health care, from a real apartment instead of a closet with a shared bathroom down the hall. Can't afford to turn down the chance to give Zuri something better, something safe, something stable. As Amara rides the elevator back down, Zuri wakes up and immediately starts fussing, little body twisting in her arms, reaching back toward the 42nd floor with grasping hands. "Daddy," she whimpers, and the word hits Amara like a physical blow. She closes her eyes and tries not to think about the expression she saw on Kang Min-jun's face when he held her daughter, like he was holding something precious that had been ripped from his hands long ago. Tries not to wonder what he lost, tries not to care, but she does care, already cares more than she should. And that terrifies her more than anything else. 3 weeks later, living with Kang Min-jun is nothing like Amara expected. She thought it would be tense, awkward, dangerous, thought she'd be walking on eggshells, constantly afraid of making a mistake, constantly aware that one wrong move could get her fired or worse. But it's not like that at all. He's almost never home during the day. When he is, he's terrifyingly controlled. Quiet footsteps that she only hears because she's listening for them. Soft-spoken commands that are never repeated. Everything meticulously organized in a way that speaks of military discipline or obsessive control. He doesn't make messes, doesn't raise his voice, doesn't leave traces of himself anywhere except the faint scent of his cologne, and the suit jackets hung in the closet with mathematical precision. The only signs that he's dangerous are the men who sometimes come to meet him in his office. She's learned not to go near that room, learned to recognize the sound of certain footsteps that mean she should take Zuri to their private quarters and stay there until she hears the elevator leave. And the way everyone who calls him speaks with barely concealed fear, voices dropping to whispers. Words chosen carefully like they're diffusing bombs. But with Zuri, something shifts. Something fundamental changes in him the moment her daughter is in the room. It starts small. The second morning after they move in, Amara finds Kong Min Jun sitting on the floor of the living room. This man who wears suits that cost more than her entire wardrobe, sitting cross-legged on the hardwood floor, letting Zuri stack blocks on his leg. He doesn't smile, but his eyes soften in a way she's never seen, softening like ice melting in spring sun, and his hands are gentle as he steadies the tower when it wobbles. When Zuri gets frustrated and knocks the blocks over with an angry squeal, he simply helps her rebuild. Doesn't get annoyed, doesn't walk away, just patiently stacks the blocks again while she watches with serious concentration. "You don't have to," Amara starts, feeling guilty that he's wasting his time, that he's sitting on the floor playing with a toddler when he probably has important things to do. "I know," he says quietly, and doesn't stop building. By the end of the first week, it becomes routine. Zuri toddles to him the moment he walks through the door, little legs pumping as fast as they can, arms outstretched and squealing, "Daddy, Daddy," in that high, excited voice that makes Amara's heart clench. He picks her up without hesitation, without even setting down his briefcase first, carrying her while he reviews documents or makes phone calls in Korean that Amara pretends not to understand, but is slowly learning anyway. Sometimes she catches him watching Zuri sleep in her playpen, standing in the doorway with his expression unreadable, but his hands clenched into fists at his sides, like he's physically restraining himself from something, like he's fighting a battle that nobody else can see. One night, 3 weeks in, Amara works up the courage to ask. She's been holding the question since the day they moved in, holding it like a burning coal in her mouth, afraid of what the answer might be but unable to stay silent any longer. She finds him on the balcony after Zuri's bedtime, smoking a cigarette, a habit she's noticed he only indulges in late at night, when he thinks nobody's watching. The city spreads out below them like a circuit board, millions of lights glittering in the darkness, and he looks small against it somehow, despite his power, despite everything he controls. "Can I ask you something?" she says quietly, stepping out into the cool night air. He doesn't turn around. "You can ask." It's not permission to get an answer, just permission to ask, and they both understand the distinction. "Why did you really offer me this job?" The question hangs between them, heavy with everything she's not saying. "Why do you look at my daughter like she's breaking your heart? Why do you hold her like she's made of glass? Why do your hands shake sometimes when you think nobody's watching?" The silence stretches so long she thinks he won't answer, thinks she's crossed a line and he's going to shut down or get angry or tell her to leave. But then, "I had a daughter." Amara's breath catches. The words are simple, past tense, and they explain everything and nothing all at once. She would have been 3 years old next month. My wife went into labor early. Complications. His voice is flat, emotionless. The kind of flat that comes from telling a story you've told yourself so many times it's lost all meaning, but his hands tremble slightly as he takes another drag. They tried to save them both. By the time I got to the hospital, they were already gone. "I'm so sorry," Amara whispers, and the words feel inadequate, feel like trying to fill an ocean with a teaspoon. Her name was going to be Ji-woo. We had the nursery ready. Paint was still wet on the walls. I was supposed to be there, but I was... He stops, jaw tight enough that Amara can see the muscle jumping. I was handling business. Thought I had time. That's not your fault. She steps closer, driven by instinct, by the need to comfort even though she knows it won't help. Isn't it? He finally looks at her, and the grief in his eyes is devastating, raw and bleeding like a fresh wound, even though it's been years. I built an empire on violence, made enemies who would have used them as leverage. Maybe it's better they never... His voice cracks, just barely, just enough to reveal the man underneath the monster. Maybe they're safer gone. Amara steps closer without thinking. Close enough that she can smell the cigarette smoke, and his cologne, and something underneath that's just him. Don't say that. Don't ever say that. Why? The word is sharp, defensive, angry. You don't know what I've done, what I am. I know you rebuilt my daughter's block tower 6 times this morning without complaint. I know you bought the organic baby food, even though I said the regular kind was fine. I know you stood outside her door for 10 minutes last week when she was crying from a nightmare, like you wanted to help but didn't think you had the right. Her voice shakes, but she doesn't stop. Can't stop now that she started. I know that whatever you were, whoever you've hurt, Zuri sees something good in you, and babies don't lie. Kang Min-jun stares at her for a long moment, his eyes searching her face like he's trying to understand how she can say these things, how she can see anything in him worth defending. Then he looks away, his voice rough. She looks like her, my Ji-woo, same eyes, same smile. He swallows hard, Adam's apple bobbing. When Zuri called me daddy, for a moment I forgot. I just forgot they were gone. Amara feels tears slip down her cheeks, hot against her skin in the cool night air. I'm sorry she made you remember. Don't be. He stubs out his cigarette with more force than necessary. Remembering hurts, but forgetting is worse. He walks past her back into the penthouse, and Amara stands there on the balcony, understanding for the first time that she's not just living with a monster. She's living with a man whose heart was murdered, and who's been trying to bury the body ever since. And somehow, impossibly, her daughter is teaching him how to dig it back up. 5 weeks later, Amara wakes to the sound of breaking glass, and for a split second she thinks she's back in that hallway, back on the 42nd floor with the vase shattering at her feet and her whole world about to collapse. But this is different. This is worse. It's 2 a.m. and the darkness in her room feels thick, suffocating, wrong. Zuri is crying, not her normal cry, not the tired, fussy sound she makes when she wants attention, but a scared cry that shoots pure adrenaline straight into Amara's veins. And there are voices in the penthouse. Too many voices, speaking rapid Korean laced with threats she doesn't need to understand to recognize as dangerous. She's out of bed before her brain fully processes what's happening, running on pure maternal instinct. She grabs Zuri from the crib, pulling her daughter against her chest, feeling that small warm body trembling with fear. Her hands are shaking so badly she can barely hold her phone, but she manages to pull it from the nightstand, manages to dial the number Kong Min Jun made her memorize on her first day. If anything ever happens, call this number first. Not the police, never the police. The line connects on the first ring. Amara? His voice is sharp, alert, completely awake despite the hour, and she can hear the sound of movement, of him already moving before he even knows what's wrong. There are men in the apartment. She whispers it, voice shaking, trying to keep quiet even though her whole body is screaming to run, to hide, to protect her baby. I don't know how they got in. Stay where you are. I'm 5 minutes away. The sound of a car engine roaring to life comes through the phone, aggressive and fast. Don't come out, no matter what you hear. The line goes dead, and Amara is alone with the darkness and the voices and the terrible understanding that 5 minutes might as well be forever. Zuri whimpers against her chest, and Amara backs into the closet, pulling the door almost shut but leaving it cracked just enough to see. She clamps a hand over her daughter's mouth, hating herself for it, but knowing they need to stay silent, knowing that one sound could get them found, could get them killed. Zuri's eyes are wide and terrified in the darkness, and Amara can feel her little heart racing against her own. She hears footsteps, heavy boots on hardwood, moving through the penthouse with purpose. The door to their private quarters slams open so hard it hits the wall, and Amara flinches, pressing herself further back into the corner of the closet, making herself as small as possible. Find them. Someone barks in Korean, voice rough and angry. The woman and the baby. Lee wants them alive. Amara's blood turns to ice. This isn't random. This isn't a robbery or a mistake. They came for her, for Zuri. They know who they're looking for, and whoever Lee is, he wants them for a reason that can't possibly be good. The footsteps get closer. She can hear them searching, hear drawers being yanked open, hear furniture being shoved aside. Closer, closer. And then the closet door flies open, and a man with a scarred face and cold eyes grins down at her like he's just won a prize. There you are. His English is broken, but clear enough, and his smile is the worst thing Amara has ever seen. He reaches for Zuri, thick fingers extending toward her daughter's arm. And then the penthouse explodes with gunfire. Amara doesn't see what happens next, can't see past the scarred man's body blocking the doorway, but she hears it. She hears everything. Screaming. Men screaming. The kind of screaming that comes from pain and terror, and the sudden understanding that you're about to die. Bodies hitting the floor with heavy thuds. The wet, terrible sounds of violence that will live in her nightmares forever. And then, Kang Min-jun's voice, speaking Korean so cold and deadly, it barely sounds human. Barely sounds like a voice at all. You touched what's mine. The sound that follows will haunt Amara for the rest of her life. It's not gunfire. Gunfire she could almost handle, could almost rationalize as quick and clean. This is worse. This is the sound of bones breaking, of flesh tearing, of a man being systematically destroyed by someone who knows exactly how to make it last, how to make it hurt. The scarred man in front of her closet turns, reaching for his gun, but he never makes it. Amara sees the spray of blood before she processes what happened, sees him drop, and then there's nothing blocking her view anymore. The penthouse looks like a war zone. Bodies everywhere. Blood on the walls, on the floor, on the windows that overlook Seoul's glittering lights. And in the center of it all stands Kong Min-jun, covered in blood that isn't his own, breathing hard, eyes empty of everything except violence. When silence finally falls, heavy, terrible silence that presses against Amara's eardrums like physical weight, Kong Min-jun appears in the doorway of the closet. He's covered in blood, splattered across his face, his hands, his chest. His knuckles are split and bleeding. There's a cut above his eyebrow that's dripping into his eye. And his expression is completely, utterly empty, like he's somewhere else entirely, like the man she knows has left his body and something else has taken his place. Then he sees Amara and Zuri huddled in the closet, and something human flickers back into his face. Something breaks through the emptiness, cracks through the violence, and suddenly he's not a monster anymore. He's just a man who's terrified of what he might have lost. "Are you hurt?" His voice is hoarse, raw, like he's been screaming, even though she never heard him make a sound. Amara shakes her head, unable to speak, unable to do anything except hold Zuri tighter and stare at the blood and try not to think about what he just did, what he's capable of, what she's living with. He kneels down slowly, carefully, like he's approaching a wounded animal, like he's afraid any sudden movement will send her running. His hands are shaking. She can see them trembling even in the darkness. And there's something in his eyes that looks like fear. Actual fear. "Give her to me." Amara should be terrified. She just heard him kill at least 4 men. Heard it in graphic, brutal detail. Heard him break them apart with his bare hands. Should be running. Should be grabbing Zuri and getting as far away as possible from this man, this monster, this killer. But when she looks into his eyes, all she sees is the same man who rebuilt block towers and bought organic baby food and stood outside Zuri's door when she had nightmares because he wanted to comfort her but didn't think he had the right. She places Zuri into his arms, and the moment his hands close around her daughter, something in his face just breaks. His eyes close. His jaw clenches. His shoulders shake with something that might be relief, or might be grief, or might be both. Zuri, who witnessed none of the violence but felt all of the fear, who was crying just moments ago, looks up at Kong Min-jun's blood-splattered face with those big, dark eyes. She reaches up, pressing her tiny hand against his cheek, right over the cut above his eyebrow. And the gesture is so gentle, so trusting, that Amara feels tears burning in her eyes. "Daddy," Zuri says it softly. Not a question, not a plea. A statement, a fact, an acceptance of something fundamental and unchangeable. Kang Min-jun closes his eyes, and for the first time since Amara has known him, tears slip down his face, cutting clean tracks through the blood. His arms tighten around Zuri, holding her like she's the only thing keeping him anchored to the world. Like without her weight against his chest, he might just float away into the violence and never come back. "I won't let anything happen to you." He whispers it against Zuri's hair, his voice breaking on the words. "Either of you, I swear it." And Amara, watching this man, this killer, this monster, this broken father who lost everything and is desperately trying not to lose it again, realizes something that should terrify her but doesn't. She believes him. God help her. She believes every word. 6 months later, the penthouse has changed in ways that would have seemed impossible that first day when Amara walked in holding a crying baby and facing down the most dangerous man in Seoul. There are toys in the living room now. Colorful blocks and stuffed animals and a plastic tea set that Zuri insists on using for tea parties every afternoon. Kong Min-jun pretends to trip over them sometimes, makes a show of being annoyed, but he never actually moves them. Never suggests putting them away. The chaos seems to bring him some kind of peace that his previous perfect order never did. The second bedroom has been converted into a proper nursery. Not because Amara asked, but because he insisted. He spent 3 weeks getting it perfect, consulting with designers, ordering furniture, painting the walls himself because he said the color the painters used wasn't quite right. Amara came home one day to find him on a ladder with paint in his hair, and the sight of it, this powerful, dangerous man, carefully painting stars on a ceiling for a child who isn't even his, made her fall just a little bit more. The news reported that Lee Sang-woo, head of a rival organization, was found dead along with 15 of his men. The official story was gang violence, a territory dispute that got out of hand. The truth was simpler, cleaner, more final. He threatened what belonged to Kong Min-jun, and Kong Min-jun doesn't give second chances to people who threaten his family. No one has bothered them since. No one would dare. Amara watches from the kitchen as Kang Min-jun sits on the floor. He's always on the floor now. Has basically given up on furniture when Zuri is around, letting her paint his hands with washable markers. He's wearing a suit that probably costs $3,000, and he doesn't care that it's getting ruined. Doesn't care that there's purple marker on his sleeve and green on his collar. Doesn't care about anything except the little girl who's giggling as she decorates his hands like they're her personal canvas. "Daddy pretty," Zuri announces, holding up her artwork with pride, showing off the swirls and dots she's created. "Very pretty," he agrees seriously, examining his painted hands like they're a masterpiece, like she's Picasso and he's honored to be her medium. Amara's heart clenches. She never meant to fall for him, never meant to see the man beneath the monster, never meant to notice the way he laughs at Zuri's jokes or the way he reads her bedtime stories with different voices for all the characters, or the way he looks at Amara sometimes when he thinks she's not watching, like she's something precious, something worth protecting, something that might save him if he just holds on tight enough. But somewhere between late-night conversations on the balcony and shared fears whispered in the darkness, and the way he looks at Zuri like she hung the moon and painted the stars, she fell hard and fast and completely, and there's no going back now. Kang Min-jun looks up and catches her staring. Something soft passes between them. Understanding, perhaps. Or permission. Or the acknowledgement of something that's been building for months, growing in the spaces between words, in the moments when their hands brush accidentally, in the way they've become something like a family without ever discussing it. He stands, scooping Zuri up with practiced ease. "Time for bed, little artist." "No!" Zuri protests automatically, but she's already rubbing her eyes, already yawning, and they all know it's just for show. Amara follows them to the nursery, watching as he tucks Zuri in with the same careful gentleness he uses for everything involving her daughter. He sits on the edge of the bed, stroking her curls until her eyes start to close, humming something soft and Korean that Amara has never heard before, but recognizes as a lullaby. "She's lucky to have you," Amara whispers when Zuri finally falls asleep, and she means it with every fiber of her being. "I'm the lucky one," he says it quietly, eyes still on Zuri's sleeping face. Then, after a pause that stretches just long enough to feel significant, "Stay." "What?" Amara's heart skips. "Stay, not as my employee, as—" He struggles with the word, jaw working like it's difficult to force out. "As family, both of you." Amara's eyes burn with tears she refuses to let fall. Min-jun. His name feels different in her mouth now, without the sir, without the distance. Just his name, just him. You don't have to answer now. But I need you to know. You saved me. Both of you." He looks at Zuri's sleeping face, and his expression is so full of love it almost hurts to witness. "She gave me a reason to be something other than a monster. You showed me I could be." Amara takes his hand, scarred, dangerous, gentle, and holds it tight. "You were never just a monster. You just needed someone to see you." He pulls her close, and she lets him, resting her head against his chest, where his heart beats steady and sure, where she can hear the proof that he's human, that he's real, that he's hers if she's brave enough to claim him. "I see you," she whispers against his shirt. "I see all of you." His arms tighten around her, and they stand there in the nursery, lit only by the soft glow of the nightlight, while Zuri sleeps peacefully and Sol glitters outside the window. Outside, there are 1,000 dangers, rival gangs and enemies and violence that never really stops. But here, in this room, there is only peace. And a little girl who called a monster Daddy and meant it, who saw past the blood and the violence and the reputation to the broken man underneath, who loved him anyway, who taught him how to love again. Amara lifts her head, meeting his eyes in the darkness. "Yes? Yes?" he repeats, like he's afraid to hope. "Yes, we'll stay, as family." She reaches up, touching his face the same way Zuri does, gentle and accepting. "We already are family. We have been for a while." He kisses her then, soft and careful, and full of promise. And when they pull apart, they're both smiling, both crying a little, both understanding that this is what healing looks like. Messy and complicated and built on broken pieces, but real, so real. In her bed, Zuri sighs in her sleep, content and safe and loved by a man who would burn the world down to protect her. A man who was a monster until a baby called him Daddy and reminded him what it felt like to be human. Thanks so much for watching, lovelies. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe for more emotional tales. Drop a comment below telling me what you think happens next for Amara, Minjun, and little Zuri. Do they get their happily ever after, or does Minjun's past come back to haunt them? Let me know your thoughts, and I'll see you in the next one.